Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the HeadSpace for Entrepreneurs podcast. I am your host, Rivers Corbett, and on this podcast, we talk to the most amazing people who are doing incredible things around the planet, all entrepreneurial, and many of us have different journeys. And today's guest is a zagger. She is doing what I love to say, you win the game of life when you zag while everybody else zigs. And we're going to talk to Carrie in a second, Dr. Kerry Kott. But first of all, of course, I have to give thanks to DeepWorks Prints. That's right. DeepWorks Prints is actually an amazing sponsor of the HeadSpace for Entrepreneurs podcast. Carrie and I actually that's where we connected up, was on this amazing group that meets on a daily basis to keep us focused, keep us accountable, keep us winning as entrepreneurs and as people, as it's a combination. Life is about work and play. So you can check out more about DeepWorks Prints at deepworksprints.com. Use the word headspace and you will see an amazing value come your way when you register. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but it's kind of cool. So back to Kerry Kott. Now, Carrie, I was trying to think about how I could introduce Carrie, and I did probably been doing about 18 weeks of research into this conversation. And here's what I came up with. Actually, it wasn't 18 weeks. It was more like, well, you who know me know that it was a shorter period of time, but I went to her LinkedIn profile, and this is, I think, a great start to really talking about Carrie's magic and how she's helping people and how she's building a business around it. She says, I am an enthusiastic life explorer. I am an eternal optimist, which is true. I am a believer, and her magic power, get this, is to turn you into a superpower to live your bold life. Kerry Kott, welcome to the Headspace for Entrepreneurs podcast. This is going to be an epic conversation.
Thank you so much for having me, Rivers, and thank you for everyone listening in. It's so great to be with all of you.
Yeah, this is an amazing journey we're all on, and I know a lot what you do. You're going to be able to help a lot of these listeners. So the first thing I want to ask you, only because I think it's kind of interesting, is on your LinkedIn profile, it says Kerry Kott, L-A, and then a little C. How come it's written with a little C?
Because the LAC stands for licensed acupuncture physician. So that's just how we do it.
That is cool. That's just the way it is. That's just the way it is. I love it. That works. No, I love it. It was because it stands out. That's a zag, right? And I think that's really cool. So, Carrie, one of the things that really intrigued me about our friendship was the journey, the life journey you're on, and how you're driven in a I want to call it a spiritual way to live your life, and then ultimately we'll get into how you're embracing this as building a business and helping people around the planet really connect with something that you're able to help them with. So, can you talk to us first about life to you? When someone sits, you were sitting around a campfire drinking a couple of beers, and I say to you, Carrie, what's your whole life about? Where are you going with it? What's your kind of raison d'etre for being on the planet? Can you start there?
Yeah. I love to start there. And it's interesting because when you first posed the question, I heard in my head, like, what is life? And the first immediate thing that came to me is about being present in the moment. It's like, what is life really? And that is what I constantly discover for myself. And when I work with others, is that it's really about now. Like, it's, we hear, oh, it's about being present, it's about the now, but it really is about being so engulfed in this moment. Like, that's what my life's about. And what I find in that space is a lot of joy and pleasure and happiness. It's the stuff outside of that can sometimes, not always, get jumbled up and get lost in the details of the future or the past or how something needs to happen or when it needs to happen. And when it's in this moment now, like we're in this conversation now.
Right.
Where else is there to be? And a part of me is like, well, that sounds really stoic and all, but it really is, you know, I've experienced moments of anxiety and fear and overwhelmment, and this never when I'm here now. You know, like being here in this conversation
It doesn't
doesn't
give you
feel
that
like that.
feeling. You don't feel like that.
No.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's very
Yeah.
interesting. Okay, so let's pause that for a sec, and let's take. When did you start to be aware of this being in the present philosophy practice?
Oh, you know, it's like life is full of these like millions of moments that lead to a moment.
Yes.
And I feel like recently I have a deeper awareness of what this means for me. It's not the first time I've come into this awareness, but there's like this new depth, this new level recently for me, like literally over the past few weeks of really getting that in a more profound way for myself and what that makes available for my life. Now, um, you know, when I started maybe like engaging with it using language of now was probably when I started meditating, which
Mm-hmm.
I like intentionally discovering what meditation was. And that was like, how many years ago was that? Maybe it
A
was like
while ago.
8 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was actually probably like 8 years ago. It seems like much longer.
And so did this start you before you became a doctor of, or was it after?
I started like meditating after, but there were shifts in my life that happened before that sent me into Chinese medicine to really
Right.
discovering that. And there was so much, there's just like so much mysticism and magic and beauty in that. And people that I was surrounded by were meditating. I learned about Qigong. I was doing Qigong, which is a meditative state, but I wasn't like waking up in the morning and meditating, and I wasn't really diving into it. There were other things in my life that I was doing, like drinking lots of alcohol.
Right.
Um, that
I mean, not
that didn't
right that I
have
know
space.
that, by the way, but that's. but, but yeah, everybody knows that, Carrie. All right. You don't have to keep talking about that. No, but that's right. You're doing stuff that wasn't productive for you, and so then you came into the light, the enlightenment.
Yeah. Yeah, and I heard a voice one day that I had met this woman who did weekly meditation, and I woke up one day and I was 28 years old and my body hurt and I had been drinking the night before, and I was like, this does
Yeah.
not make sense. Like this doesn't make sense.
Right.
And I heard a voice in my head that said, contact this woman. And I did.
Wow.
I immediately sent her a message and I said, hey, I know you got these meditations. And she said, come on, it's Tuesday, da 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 da. And that
Mm.
literally was another pivotal turning point in my life where it drastically changed.
So is it fair to say that you listen and look for, and not look for, but your eyes are open for signals that guide you on your journey?
Yeah, absolutely. And to trust that without a doubt. And
Yes.
it does take some work to trust that.
Okay.
It's not a degree. You got to do it
Yeah.
every day. And
Yeah. Well, this is important part of the conversation, and because I mean, my audience is probably our audience is listening in and say, "Where are you fucking going with this, Rivers?" Anyway, like we're entrepreneurs, and what I love about Carrie is that she's wacky and wonderful, and that to me is what entrepreneurs are all about. And key to the journey of an entrepreneur is listening and embracing and keeping eyes open. Not that you're overly sensitive, but being able to listen to the promptings of the universe. And I know when I've done it, I've been successful. When I've fought the promptings, life gets pretty cranky for Rivers. And so, can you talk about that for our entrepreneurs who are listening and say, how do you practice that? Because you said it's not easy to listen to connect with those signals. Can you talk about what practice that you did that allowed you to move forward in a life that, as a business person, we're going to get into in a second?
Yeah. So I think it's more of the work comes in trusting it and following those impulses, because we all have that innately within us. Like we know, like every single person listening knows the difference between when they know something and it feels so spot on, and when
Mm,
they're questioning it and they're doubting it. And that is a big distinction. When you know beyond anything, when you feel it, when it's just like, it's my gut, I just know it. And you know what's something really simple that I would do is when I would go for a walk, I would listen to that voice. And if I felt to take a left as I was walking, I would
yeah.
take left. And it was such a simple way. There was no attachment. There was no big deal on the line. There was no client dangling in front of me. There was like literally just, I'm going for a walk and I'm going to listen to my inner voice. and it
Mm.
and it just take that walk and just feel it. And that's how I started to refine that for myself, one of the many ways. But it's so simple because you're going for a walk or
Did you
driving
ever
down the road.
did you ever find yourself going for that walk, listening to that message, and then end up going into this amazing journey or experience because you listened?
Yeah, like sometimes it would be like an eagle would fly where I had
Mm.
just taken a right, or I would walk past this unique house and I would be like, holy cow, like I've never seen this house before. And I would find myself standing in front of it. And then I would be like, wow, if I hadn't taken a left here, because I normally go on my walk and I go here and I go there.
Mm.
And so, like, and then acknowledging what was so different about that experience as it was happening was also more proof for me to trust that.
Mm. So so when you're talking about helping entrepreneur, and I'm, by the way, gang, I'm a firm believer in what she's saying. This is not some sort of, again, what are you doing, Rivers? No, I'm all about, you got to listen, and I'm all about a higher power of the universe. Call it God, call it universe, call it whatever you want, but there's powers out there that are promptings that are directing us towards us to what is good. And so listening, the small listenings, practice that. That's great. So, are there any other practices that you would you found are good and useful for you? Not necessarily going to be useful for other people, because we're all in our own journey. But can you talk about those?
Yeah, one thing that stands out greatly and is something that I teach is intentional silence. So,
Mm,
intentional silence is not just silence. So, there's a difference between, hey, I'm not around anybody, I'm not talking to anybody.
mm-hmm,
That's sure you're being in silence, but when there becomes an intentionality of being intentional silence, and intentional silence to me is also the um removal of exterior factors. So it means no TV, no social media, no conversations on the phone, no outside, not even writing. And I love to write, I love to paint. That's not even, it's about literally removing all the barriers and
mm,
being an intentional silent. I'm not going to speak. I'm not going to communicate with people. I'm going to spend some time in intentional silence. And what's really powerful about that is for me, it helps me to declutter my mind. It's like
mm-hmm,
the purge. It's like literally
mm.
all the confusing thoughts in my mind get to go on their way because I've removed temporarily the external stimuli that has me question myself. So like sometimes I've looked at other people's stuff and thought, man, maybe I should do it like that. And it's like, no, that doesn't feel good. That's not right. That's how they
Yeah.
do it. And it helps me to declutter the space of wondering what I should be doing with my business. And it gets me into my center of what's in my heart, what's really true, what is my passion, what is that gift. So even if I know what it is, it helps me to constantly reconnect. And I like to do it outside with nature, because
Sure.
there's so many interesting things outside, and my eyes are like clearer out there, and smells are more fragrant, and sounds are just so different. So it just allows a different experience to enter my life.
Wow. So what's the third one?
What's the third one?
Yeah. You've been smoking dope while you've been talking to me now, haven't you? Forgot the third question.
Oh no. You know what's funny is that people have often thought that throughout my life. They're like, Carrie, you must smoke something. And I found that fascinating, because I'm like, I've discovered that sometimes it's like, how could you be so happy? Or like, how can I?
Yeah.
But that's what, to me, connection with source, with God, with
Yes.
was really about, is like
Brilliant.
being high on life.
Yeah. Well, I like the kids, so that's what that was it, and you got a great laugh, so that's the other thing. People need to know you as a part of that. So, Carrie, so I get it. I understand where your promptings have led you. Did you go through any formal training to accentuate what you wanted to learn, connect with? Before you started your business?
Well, I went to Chinese medicine school.
Yep. Tell us about that.
I when I was 19, I had exploratory surgery, and the Western doctors wanted to give me medications and steroids and things. And I just was like, no, this doesn't feel right. There's something else out for me. I don't know what it is. And I went on this journey, and I just kept holding to that truth. And then I discovered Chinese medicine through the experience.
Mm,
And then the doctor that I had worked with, I said, I want to make a difference in people's lives like he did for me. Like, he listened, he was present with
mm,
me, and that made the world of difference. And it
mm.
didn't make sense, but I knew that it was right. And I
Right.
started to feel better. So I went into Chinese medicine school in my early 20s, and was there for 4 years. And I literally graduated, took my boards, got my license, got everything set up. And then I was like, I'm going to have a business. And I thought that, wow, since I have a business, people are going to swarm.
Yes.
Swarm.
Yeah, of course. That's what
And
they do. That's how business works.
they didn't. They didn't. I didn't know anybody in Florida. I didn't grow up in Florida. I went to a different part of Florida to start my business, where I still didn't know anybody. And I was like, why are people not here?
Yeah, that's right. I'm here. Why aren't they here? I'm here to
Yeah.
save everybody. Don't they know this? No, this is interesting, because this is exactly where I see entrepreneurs fail. Is they think because they're good at something that people will naturally fall to their feet and drive thousands of miles, because this is what's happened, and it's not how it works. Business is a formula to date, embrace, connect with, and then connect with again your customers and what their needs are. Your customers aren't sitting waiting on their doorstep for Kerry Kott or Rivers Corbett to say, "Okay, I'm ready now." Doesn't work that way. So I love that that you went through that, because it's a lesson to be learned. So back up for a quick sec. Your business. Tell us what your business is, and then I want to tie into, okay, how are you now building this business to bring value to your lucky clients?
Yeah. So my business now is this amazing online experience that connects people to nature through connecting with their soul, and teaching them how to do intentional silence, how to quiet your mind, and the value that we all have available to us.
Hmm.
And So I'm developing it right now. I'm in the process of launching it and completing some things with that. And it's interesting because you asked me about my first entry into it.
Yes.
And the first entry was like expecting people to come. And now it's so different, like knowing these things and already having my feet wet in the entrepreneurial world for many years. And you and I had a conversation the other day, and
Mm-hmm.
I was telling you, because I was looking at really refining my target market, and
Mm.
it's scary in there for me. It's been scary in there. Oh my gosh, if I get specific, what happens to all the other people?
Mm.
And one of my friends said to me, he said, being specific is directly connected to vulnerability. And as soon as he said that, I got something and I was like, I've been scared to be specific with my audience.
Mm.
And you said something, Rivers, to me, and I told you that as I've been sharing things on my social media, on my Facebook about nature and connecting intimately with nature and what that makes available, I told you that there were a lot of men who were engaging in those posts and who were sending me messages and saying thank you, and they're inspired. And it just opened up this whole new world of my audience has been in front of me the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just haven't seen them. And then I
Yeah.
found myself wondering, well, what do men really want? And I thought, well, wait a second, they're already coming to me. There's something I'm already doing. And then I was like, I made a post for women the other day, and men responded to it. And I was like, okay, I gotta get on the phone with these men. So I put a post up today and I said, I'm looking for these men that have this quality, and this quality. And literally my inbox got flooded. They started commenting on the post. I was
Oh,
like,
come on.
okay.
Come on. Come
I
on.
know. I
How
was
is
like,
that possible? How is that
which was
possible?
huge. But that's listening too. I
Yes.
listened to the call that said, Rivers, I want to have a phone call with you. And then I listened to, because I've received information from many of entrepreneurs that I admire, but it doesn't seem right for me. Or it feels like, oh, if I do that, I feel like I'm just doing something to make something happen.
Yes.
And this wasn't that feeling. Like knowing the difference between this is what's right for me and my business versus this is what other people are doing. And this person has some great knowledge, but it's not authentic to me. And when you said that, I was like, let me look there because something is there.
Yeah. It's the Steve Jobs talks about one of his university commencement addresses that he did. Of course, he's no longer with us, which I think is a real shame. But he talked about you can't look forward to where you're going, but you sure can look back to see how you got there. And you look at those stepping stones, and of course they're always zags. They're never straight lines. Sometimes they go backwards, but ultimately, yeah, you're able to see how you got there, and the steps to get where you ultimately were talking to me probably started 5 years ago or 2 years ago or whatever to get to there. So here's a question for you, um, Carrie: is it why do people fight the promptings? Why do people fight why did you fight? No, it's women. When actually your background, you're supposed to listen, but you didn't listen. So why does that happen to people?
Because something else is running the show. Something
Mm,
else of, some belief about this is how it should be, or this is what I
mm,
should be doing, or something that I've run into, bumped up against is this person that I admire does that really well, and that's how they do it. And that
mm-hmm,
is, oh, I just got so many chills on that. That is like
mm,
detriment. I have literally landed myself in a big hole every time I do that. They do it this way, so I should probably do it because they have success doing that. And also the thought that popped into my mind when I started looking, I was like, well, what do men want? How can I serve them? And then I realized, wait a second. Clearly, I already know how to do that because they're the ones that have been engaging in things that I've been sharing. And
yeah,
it's interesting. It's just the unfamiliar. it's sometimes like if we're used to being in the comfortability or this is how it's supposed to be done, but it's in the uncomfortability, it's in the unknown,
Mm,
that like life exists there. Like it doesn't have to be comfortable. It can be, but it gets to be alive. And it's just, shifting from this is just what's familiar to wow, I got to put myself out there. I got to take a leap, and it's into the unknown. I've never
wow.
done that before. I've
Yeah.
never done this before. I've never been so specific in my business as I am right now. And
Right.
there are times of uncomfortability.
Yeah, but there are signs along the way that say you're on the right path.
Absolutely. There are signs, and it also makes sense. And it still makes
Right.
sense even though it's uncomfortable.
Right. 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 So do you believe that, and this is again relevant to the journey of an entrepreneur, is do you believe that being uncomfortable is critical to get to or continue on the journey you were really meant to be?
That's an interesting question because uncomfortability doesn't have to mean pain. I want to distinguish that as well.
Right.
Um, it doesn't have to mean that there's pain. Uncomfortability can just be like, this is really different, but it can be exciting. It can be painful. I think that it is critical because when we venture into the unknown, it's that like amazing uncomfortability to
Right.
whatever degree we're experiencing it. And it's like, I see uncomfortability as what hasn't happened yet. That's really amazing in waiting. It's like
Mm,
that zagging. It's what you call zagging. I see it as
mm.
is that if we're like the leading edge of life, of business, of whatever you're creating in your business, is that uncomfortability.
It's a, I believe that it's the rite of passage, and I believe that it's part of, again, the universe, God, testing. Because if you're climbing heights, which you are on your journey, it's do you really want it? Because with that journey, and this is again entrepreneurship. I am not flirting away from this conversation. This is a higher level conversation that many entrepreneurs would never go through. But there's a certain sense of responsibility, social responsibility, community responsibility that comes with you going on your journey that you're going to go on. And if you're not committed to it, even in the downturn, then the universe, God, doesn't necessarily want you there. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think it's that you don't want you there either.
Ah,
You know,
interesting. Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
you know, you don't really want to be there either. If it's not like we know, it goes back to that knowing, like, when something's really right. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't mean that, like, oh, it's like, like we all
Mm-hmm.
have those moments where it's like, and we know if we're doing something in our business that is so aligned with who we are.
Yeah.
And there's
Yeah.
no, we can't lie to ourselves even if we try to. It just seems off. Like there's like
Yeah.
always something
That's
nagging
right.
there, or like,
Yeah.
man, I don't really want to go into a collaboration with this person. Like those things are important. They don't mean no, don't go into collaboration, but it might be something's missing, something's off. What is that? Am I not
Mm.
ready? Do I need to have a conversation with this person? It's all that information in there.
Cool. Okay, so let's come down a few notches and talk about. No, this is good information because, as you say, you got to think. You got to. It's just, the game isn't just about doing. There's a reason why football is played once a week in the NFL is because you have to think, you have to plan, you have to get your head focused in on the game where you're playing in. And so I think that higher level of awareness of the things we're just talking about, I think is critical to helping people be successful. So you've come to this awareness, this revelation, if you want to call it, about who your niche is. How else do you serve those guys?
It's an interesting question because at first I'm like, what's the answer? What is the answer?
Yeah, and let's talk about not necessarily in a product perspective. It's a what they leave with each and every time that they've had a connection with your business.
Being seen,
Yeah.
being heard.
Okay. And that's what's lacking.
Yeah, and I'm getting on some calls. I literally took action and made that post, and I have a list of people scheduled that I'm having a conversation with because I'm like, I get to just ask them all directly now. I get to ask them all directly, and they literally were chomping at the bit, so to
Isn't that
say.
crazy?
Literally,
Isn't that
I
crazy?
was like, holy cow. It was like, wow. And these are so like these particular men are sensitive to their emotions. And that means being aware. And it's interesting. I had one man say, well, wouldn't that be a woman? And I was like, well, that's fascinating. Let's talk about that.
Yeah,
And I was
right on
like,
validation.
right. And so like they literally were like, hey, and literally men started inboxing me, and I don't even know if they saw it, but they were like, hey, how are you? And I was like, see, that's how easy it can be when we're aligned. And you touched on doing, and there's such power in being really connected to what we're doing
Yes.
that it becomes really easy.
Yes.
It becomes people showing up and the conversation showing up.
Love it. So, okay. So again, we're going to dial it down a bit. We told you we're going to talk for half an hour. We're now at 35 minutes. Crazy how good conversations can keep on going, and you have brought incredible value to this conversation for what it is you're doing. So I want to now go down to, okay, I want my friends, I want my colleagues, I want the entrepreneurs that are connecting with you to reach out. So when they reach out, when they make that connection with you, what's the journey that you're going to take them on, say in the first 30 days to 60 days, with them working with you?
I love this question. So the initial journey is one of an intentional silence. So I take them really
Yes.
into, yeah. So there's something really beautiful that I love about Chinese medicine and nature and everything in life is we have these polarities, these dualities of yin and yang. And something that I see that's really missing, and what I've been sharing about that these men have shown up for, is the yin aspect. And the yin is the very introspective, it's the reflective, it's about listening to that inner voice. So it becomes this entry level into discovering how to be intentionally silent to hear your own voice, which is typically more of like this feminine aspect of being really in touch with that and feeling things. And it's not necessarily just about feeling, it's about knowing and listening to yourself and having that inward time. That masculine energy is very like doing out in the world, and it's business, it's entrepreneurship,
Yeah.
it's the sun.
Yeah. Yeah. It's yeah.
So it becomes this inward journey, and it's gentle, it's not like we're gonna dive and you're gonna
Yeah.
now experience a whole day of intentional silence off the bat. It's this constant connection of come into yourself, and here are the tools, here's intentional silence. And by the way, I'm completely 100% available, which is something that feels really good to me. It's not like, hey, we have, so it's a group experience, and it's not just, hey, you can email me anytime. It's like, no, you can hop on the call with me anytime. Like that is something that I'm providing. You're stuck. I do have this
That's interesting.
structure to it. I have a structure that's like, I'm not here to enable you, and I'm still here. So if you feel stuck, stop, acknowledge what you're feeling, go outside, send me an email, send me a voice note, And then we go from there. But there's these steps that you can take within yourself. But hey, by the way, I am literally 100% available, which I find extremely rich and valuable that I don't see much out there.
Yeah, so I'm going to suggest, my friend, that you change that word to accessible versus available, because you would create expectations. Oh my God, I need her now. What do you mean she's talking to Rivers? What do you mean she's talking to Bob? What do you mean she's talking to Steve? No. So accessible is, I think, a more appropriate word for you, because I'd hate to see you create all these expectations, and then all of a sudden you get an unhappy tribe out there that's grumpy because they can't get there, because well, I guess how you look at it, there's fortunately only one of you, and unfortunately also. So, but I love that promise.
I love that.
I love that promise. It's so, well, the word helpful's there. That's kind of a boring word, but it's so, well, anyway, I can't think of the word for it, but so anything else that they would, so that's the journey that you're going to take them on. Is there any promise at the beginning that says, you come with me, this is what we're going to accomplish, or this is what we're going to experience?
So one of the things that they get access to is understanding why they feel what they feel in their body, or why they feel what they feel emotionally. So one of the powerful tools is they get access to distinguishing that. So when my body feels this way, what's going on in with me emotionally, and if this is going on emotionally, what's going on in my life? So it doesn't become around being at the mercy of, I'm feeling this in my body, my neck hurts, I can't sleep at night, and I'm agitated about this thing. It becomes a tool to understand, what am I doing here, or what have I been doing with my day that has me agitated? And they can make those shifts in their life. Then their body responds to it, which is a big part of how I've worked with my patients over the past 10 years, is getting that the power doesn't lie in your hormones are off, or your colleagues not a nice person.
Yeah.
It becomes, what am I doing here that has me feeling like this in my body? What is going on with me that this is happening in my business?
Right. Love it.
So that's something that's really big in there.
It's very big and very powerful, and the word now that comes is that you embrace, and so there's great ability to walk into this journey with you and your business and feeling welcome, and without any judgment associated with it. And I think that that's all part of the initial stages, which you offer, in addition to obviously the knowledge that you're going to provide to them that we just talked about. So how do people connect with Kerry Kott?
So you can find me on social media, Kerry Kott, KerryKott.
Yes.
I have a new website coming up, which is kerrykott.com, which is all
Nice.
that information. Yeah.
You're on Facebook. You're on LinkedIn.
I'm on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram.
Love it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you need to connect with Carrie, and if you know somebody that needs to connect with her, you should do that. This has been not a typical conversation specifically related to helping entrepreneurs succeed. It's not about branding. It's not about cash flow. It's not about HR. It's not about customer service, all those things that make up the formula for success. It has to do with the inside to help you with the outside. And so, Carrie, wow, just thanks so much. It's been a great conversation, as I expected it to be. And, you just keep on doing, right? It's important work you're doing. And I hope you know that, and hope you'll continue to do it.
I will. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you, everyone, for listening in. I'd love to hear how this has had an impact for you.
Right on. Good stuff, my friend.